In this video, we will explore how a tiger in Washington is making China nervous. The rise of the China hawk. But who is this tiger and what are his views on China? The tiger in Washington is a nickname for Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican from Arkansas who has been one of the most outspoken critics of China in the U.S. Congress. He is also considered a leading China hawk, a term that refers to those who advocate for a tough and confrontational approach to Beijing on issues such as trade, human rights, security, and technology. Cotton's views on China are shaped by his belief that the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, is a ruthless and expansionist regime that poses a grave threat to the U.S. and its allies. He has accused China of lying about the coronavirus pandemic, stealing American intellectual property, oppressing ethnic minorities, undermining Hong Kong's autonomy, threatening Taiwan's sovereignty, and building up its military capabilities in the Indo-Pacific region. He has also called for decoupling the U.S. economy from China's and imposing sanctions, tariffs, and other punitive measures on Beijing. Cotton has introduced or supported several bills in the Senate that aim to counter China's influence and challenge its interests. For example, he co-sponsored the Hong Kong Autonomy Act, which authorizes sanctions on Chinese officials and entities that undermine Hong Kong's freedoms, the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act, which imposes sanctions on those responsible for human rights abuses against Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in China, and the Taiwan Defense Act, which requires the U.S. to maintain sufficient military forces in the region to deter a Chinese invasion of Taiwan. Cotton has also advocated for increasing the U.S. defense budget, strengthening the U.S. alliance system, and enhancing cooperation with like-minded countries such as India, Japan, Australia, and the UK to form a united front against China. He has urged the U.S. to invest more in emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biotechnology, and 5G networks to maintain its competitive edge over China. He has also warned American businesses and universities of the risks of doing business with or accepting funding from Chinese entities that may be linked to the CCP or its military. Cotton's hardline stance on China has earned him praise from some conservatives and national security experts who share his concerns about China's rise and ambitions. However, it has also drawn criticism from others who argue that his policies are unrealistic, counterproductive, or dangerous. Some critics contend that Cotton exaggerates China's capabilities and intentions, ignores the benefits of engagement and cooperation with China, alienates potential partners who do not share his views, and increases the risk of conflict or escalation with a nuclear-armed rival. In this video series we will examine Cotton's arguments and actions on various aspects of U.S.-China relations. We will also explore how his influence may affect Washington's policy toward Beijing under different scenarios. Stay tuned for more episodes on how a tiger in Washington is making China nervous. The rise of the China hawk. The title of this video suggests that there is a person in Washington who is very critical of China and its policies, and who is influencing the U.S.-China relations in a way that makes China nervous. This person could be called a China hawk, someone who advocates for a tough and confrontational approach to dealing with China. In this section, we will analyze how his policies and actions have affected the U.S.-China relations and the regional balance of power. One possible candidate for the tiger in Washington is Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican from Arkansas, who has been one of the most outspoken critics of China in Congress. He has accused China of lying about the coronavirus pandemic, of oppressing the Uyghur minority, of undermining Hong Kong's autonomy, and of threatening Taiwan's security. He has also proposed several bills and resolutions to sanction Chinese officials and entities, to restrict Chinese investments and technology transfers, and to strengthen U.S. military presence and alliances in the Indo-Pacific region. Senator Cotton's policies and actions have contributed to the deterioration of U.S.-China relations, which have reached their lowest point in decades. His rhetoric and proposals have provoked strong reactions from Beijing, which has denounced him as a troublemaker and a liar. His initiatives have also influenced other lawmakers and policymakers in Washington, who have adopted a more hawkish stance on China. For example, President Joe Biden has continued some of the Trump administration's policies on trade, human rights, and security issues related to China, despite calling for more cooperation on global challenges such as climate change and nuclear proliferation. Senator Cotton's policies and actions have also affected the regional balance of power in Asia, where China is rising as a major economic and military power. His support for Taiwan's defense and sovereignty has increased the risk of a military conflict across the Taiwan Strait, which could drag in the US and its allies. His advocacy for strengthening US alliances with Japan, Australia, India, and other countries has created a counterweight to China's influence and ambitions in the region. His opposition to Chinese investments and infrastructure projects has challenged China's Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to connect Asia, Europe, and Africa through trade and development. In conclusion, Senator Cotton is a prominent China hawk in Washington who has shaped US-China relations and the regional balance of power with his policies and actions. He has pushed for a more aggressive and confrontational approach to dealing with China, which has increased tensions and competition between the two countries. He has also sought to contain China's rise and influence in Asia, which has created new alliances and challenges in the region. The tiger in Washington is not a literal animal, but a nickname for a prominent politician who has been vocal about his tough stance on China. He is often compared to the Flying Tigers, a group of American volunteer pilots who fought against the Japanese invasion of China during World War II. The tiger in Washington has advocated for a more confrontational approach to China on issues such as trade, human rights, Taiwan, and the South China Sea. He has also supported strengthening ties with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region to counter China's growing influence. The reactions and responses of China and other countries to the tiger's rise and his China hawk stance have been mixed. On one hand, China has denounced the tiger as a troublemaker and a warmonger who is trying to sabotage the bilateral relationship and undermine China's legitimate interests. China has also accused the tiger of interfering in its internal affairs and violating international law. China has warned that it will not tolerate any provocation or challenge from the tiger or anyone else, and that it will defend its sovereignty and security at all costs. On the other hand, some countries have welcomed the tiger's leadership and vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. They have expressed their support for the tiger's efforts to uphold democratic values, human rights, and the rule of law in the face of China's assertiveness and coercion. They have also praised the tiger's initiatives to enhance cooperation and coordination among like-minded countries on various issues such as climate change, pandemic response, cybersecurity, and infrastructure development. They have hoped that the tiger will continue to play a constructive role in promoting peace and stability in the region and beyond. However, not all countries share the same enthusiasm or alignment with the tiger's views on China. Some countries have expressed their concerns or reservations about the tiger's hawkish rhetoric and actions, fearing that they might escalate tensions or trigger conflicts with China. They have urged the tiger to adopt a more balanced and pragmatic approach to China, one that respects its legitimate interests and concerns, and seeks dialogue and cooperation rather than confrontation and competition. They have also cautioned the tiger against creating new divisions or alliances that might undermine the existing regional architecture or multilateral institutions. The tiger in Washington has thus become a polarizing figure in the international arena, especially in relation to China. His rise and his China hawk stance have generated both admiration and animosity, both support and opposition, both opportunities and challenges. How he will manage these complex dynamics and what impact he will have on the future of US-China relations and global affairs remain to be seen.